I decided I wanted to listen to every single Disciple Records song. It took me on enough the past 3 or so weeks to listen to every single song from the very beginning to what is now the Eliminate EP. And throughout this entire process, I have been able to learn a lot. I've gotten to get to know artists, I've gotten to find a ton of stats, and I'm hoping that in this video I'll be able to showcase Disciple in a concise but very fun and interesting video. I'm hoping that with this video I'll also be able to come up with a lot of new content and ideas. After listening to basically every single Disciple song, I want to find inspiration into making Disciple mixes, Disciple mashups, etc. of the sort. I'm also hoping that with this potentially new series I can branch out to other new labels. One of the labels that I've been wanting to do a marathon run is of Bitbird, so if you guys have any label suggestions, you can comment in the section down below. Please do not comment Monstercat though. I will not do Monstercat, at least not now. I want to do something that is out of my usual comfort zone, and I mean, if you guys really wanted to, there's already a ton of places where you could find a ton of stats for Monstercat. So for now, I'd rather tread into new water and see where this goes. Hopefully this can also be a way to network with new people. Apparently Bandles is actually subscribed to my YouTube channel, so hello there, Mr. Bandles. I know someone's gonna call me out, Duel, you don't continue series, what happened to the Where Are Monstercat artists? I know, it's been a couple months, I've been meaning to make a new video for 2012 artists. That's kind of fallen through the cracks, but I do have a script that I'm writing, so I'm hoping that at least before the end of the year I can get that out. But for now, let's get back to the topic at hand. For this video today, I will be talking about Disciple. Disciple actually has a Fandom wiki page, so I'm actually going to be reading off of that a little bit, so credit to whoever wrote this. I will include a link in the description. Disciple Recordings is an independent label founded by Rob from Dodge and Fusky and Ross from Myro and Half of Astronaut in 2013. Disciple was originally founded as a sister label to Never Say Die Records, but late 2017 saw the separation from them and Disciple due to vocal allegations and disputes from Schism. The releases on the label mostly comprises of dubstep, but have branched out into drum and bass and various other genres in bass music such as electronica. So yeah, as I said in the beginning of this video, I've listened to every single Disciple release. From Virtual Riot's There Goes Your Money LP, all the way to Eliminate's Dead Sea EP that is released just 2 days before this recording. I do want to make one very important distinction. As many of you may know, Disciple also has a sister label, which is Disciple Roundtable. The reason I am making this distinction is because I have not listened to a single Roundtable release. I'm actually saving the sister label of Disciple Roundtable for its own video. So in this video, I will only be covering Disciple artists and Disciple music. In my quest to listen to every single song, I collected a ton of stats, such as the length of time in the song, the artist, how many times an artist appeared, the number of releases, albums, remixes, and features that they have. And I also kept track of every single release, whether it was an LP, an EP, a single, etc. I also kept together a list of my top favorite tracks, which I will actually be saving for another video, perhaps my CD swap, where I did mention before, I wanted to make like an exclusive Disciple, top picks. So yeah, I'm hoping with this new wave of ideas, there's going to be a lot of content and a lot to share. So I'm hoping this will be a very informative and interesting video. We're going to start off with the number one question that is probably burning in everyone's mind. How many songs has Disciple released so far? The answer, 673. Now there is one thing that I do want to have as a discrepancy, is that I may or may not be correct in some things. I do find that sometimes I may miss something, so if something is wrong, I hope I'm not extremely wrong, so do be sure to fact check, though I don't think anyone will, and I hope that if I am wrong, that it's not by much. There were times where I wasn't actually sure if something was considered a Disciple release. Sometimes Disciple in the past has actually uploaded stuff onto their own socials and made it look like it was a Disciple release when it wasn't. And like I said at the very end of this video, I didn't even realize that Virtual Riot's LP was on the label. At first I thought that the very first release was Dodge and Fusky's Turn It Up Silent remix, because that is on their SoundCloud as the first release. So yeah, there might be people out there who might not even know that Virtual Riot was actually the first person to release on Disciple. While Virtual Riot may have been the first person to release an LP, the first person to release an EP was actually Dodge and Fusky's remixed EP. It was a remix EP of a bunch of his songs, remixed by the likes of Xylent, 501, Finch, Astronaut, and 2 VIPs. On the up and coming, Disciple also did have some collaborations with other labels. I think one of the most notable that people might remember is that Monstercat and Disciple have actually collaborated on a number of releases. I put this one as a question mark because I wasn't 100% sure if it was a collaboration. It wasn't listed as a collaboration, but of course, as many of you know, Pegboard Nerd's Guilty Pleasures EP was actually released on both Disciple and Monstercat. It wasn't until the recruitment of Astronaut onto Monstercat where this collaboration was actually listed as official, and not only official, but a reoccurring segment. There was the Destination Apollo EP, Quantum EP, Destination Rain EP, Destination Quantum EP, and as many know, it eventually came to that Astronaut would have a number of exclusive Monstercat EPs released over on Monstercat. With Monstercat aside though, there was also two other labels that at least I was able to see were also having collaborations. That being the Dodge and Fusky Remixed EP, which may have been a collaboration with Never Say Die, which is unsurprising. As I've said earlier, this was at the time a sister label for Never Say Die. And the other label being Creative Classics. The reason I noted that, and is not something I am 100% sure of, is because on this Creative Classics, they also released Virtual Riot's There Goes Your Money LP. So that is something to note. I'm not 100% sure, but it is a cool fact. What's up, it's me from the future. While working on this video, I also found another collaboration that Disciple actually had with Firepower Records. They released 3 releases together, that being the Barely Alive Internet Streets EP, the Barely Alive Internet Streets Remixed EP, and then the Datsik and Barely Alive The Blast Us double-sided single. Anyways, back to the video. One thing that I noticed a lot of is that, at least in the beginning, there was a ton of EPs. It seemed like the only thing that Disciple was pumping out at the time were EPs and LPs. And if an artist was to put out a single, it was usually put out with a subsequent second single or a subsequent remix. A lot of times people would often classify this as a side A, side B release, or as I like to call it, a double-sided single. This is in reference to how CDs back in the days, or at least I believe CDs or cassettes, would have 2 sides to it, and depending on which side you play, it would play a different song. As such, the first double-sided single was actually Dodge and Fusky and Culprit's Vice. On that, Dodge and Fusky and Culprit collaborated on the track Vice with a following Festa remix of Vice as well. It wasn't until later on that we saw the eventual first full-on single, which is Dodge and Fusky and Barely Alive's Poison. From there, we saw a lot more singles and such. Another very interesting form of release that I'm going to include is actually Barely Alive and Astronaut's Rivals EP. The reason I'm including that is because the soundtrack of that game was actually then implemented into their own game that was released with its own individual 8-bit game soundtrack. I wasn't exactly sure if this was considered a Disciple release, but I did include it in the Disciple discography regardless. Similar to Monstercat with their Uncaged and Instinct releases, we also had the rise of Disciple compilations, that being their Alliance compilations, where they would have a compilation of collaborations, Disciple Reinforcements, which would bring on a compilation of a bunch of new artists to the label, and there were also 2 interesting compilations that were unlike anything that they've had, that being Disciple X Jericho and Disciple X Minilad. From what I was counting, there have so far been 13 compilations, 12 double-sided singles, 75 EPs, that including collaborations, 14 remix EPs, 7 LPs, 3 remix LPs, and 17 singles. I included this separately, but there were also releases of individual remixes, that being 5. And as well, we cannot forget the single release of an 8-bit game soundtrack. The next thing that I want to go into is actually something I think a lot of people would be interested in: Duality. How long is their discography? The average length of a song on Disciple is 3 minutes and 47 seconds. The shortest song on Disciple is only 40 seconds long. That going to Barely Alive with his interlude, We Are Barely Alive. And the longest song on Disciple going to Astronaut Rain, but more specifically the D-Flint remix, being 6 minutes and 13 seconds long. But I know that doesn't satisfy the actual answer which I was going to say. Now I'm going to be completely honest, Google Sheets is really weird, so I don't exactly know if I calculated it correctly. If I do have this correct though, every single song added up together makes up to be 2,561 minutes and 28 seconds. Or if you feel like calculating that, it comes around to about 42 hours and a half of music. I do plan on actually including the Disciple Records statistic sheet that I have in the description if any of you want to check it out. So if you want to make sure and double check, that is up to y'all. Have fun with it. The next thing I'm going to go on is actually Disciple artist statistics. Now this is something I'm a bit more worried on just because I've had a number of mishaps while adding all of this up, so this may or may not be wrong and I'm really sorry in advance. Disciple has seen a ton of artists come and go, a number of them being featured artists. Back in 2013, there was a total of 21 artists starting off the label. I'll quickly list through them, but I probably won't do this for the rest of the years. Dodge and Fusky, Silent, 501, Flinch, Astronaut, Pegboard Nerds, Tristram, Splitbreed, Eyes, The Brig, Barely Alive, Culprit, Festa, Dubsidia, Centrin, Abstract, Crafty Cuts, Far Too Loud, Midas, Sledgehammer, DKS. One Breath. Going into 2014, there was a total of 31 brand new artists coming into the label. Coming into 2015, there was another 35. 2016 brought in 47 new artists. 2017 brought in only 26 artists, which is lesser than the previous years. 2018 brought in 45 new artists. And 2019, as of October 25th, has only brought in 24 artists. But that isn't only what I've collected. As I've noted before, I've also collected the number of times an artist appeared, the number of singles they released, the number of albums, the number of remixes / VIPs, and the number of times they featured. It's pretty self-explanatory, but I'm going to quickly explain it anyways, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. The number of times an artist was featured has only been calculated as to whether or not an artist was credited as a feature. I know a lot of people like to meme that Virus Syndicate is probably the #1 featured artist on Disciple, and while you guys are correct, I would like to clarify though that he is only the #1 featured artist on Disciple going into 2019. Before 2019, Virus Syndicate was actually the second most featured artist on Disciple, the #1 featured artist actually being Split Breed. Virus Syndicate featured on the label 8 times, Split Breed following up with 6, Critchy Critch with 4, following Critchy Critch, Virtual Riot, Strikes, and Legeveld actually tie for 3 features. Barely Alive, Messinanan, Armani Rain, The Arcturians, and Leia Culver are tied for 2 features, and I'm not going to go into the rest because everyone else featured only once on the label. What I will say though is that the number of people who featured once on the label amounts to 59 artists. Moving on from featured, let's talk about remixes and VIPs. The two are categorized together as a VIP is technically a remix of your own song. I do want to clarify though, I'm not talking about the artist with the most remixes, but the artist who produced the most remixes. The artist with the most remixes on the label goes to Barely Alive with 13. Barely Alive is the only artist with double-digit remixes. Following Barely Alive is Astronaut with 7 remixes. Virtual Riot and Dodge and Fusky are tied for 6 remixes. Oolacile is at 5 remixes. Phase 1 and Mayhem are at 4 remixes. Truth, Boy Kid Cloud, Fox Stevenson, Abstract, and 501 have 3 remixes. Oh boy, big breath time. Dubloadz, Eliminate, Oliver's, The Others, Buca's Finest, Pegboard Nerds, Vandals, Infect, The Firm, Bar 9, Megalodon, Funt Case, Xylent, Quest, Far Too Loud, Getter, Anti-Serum, Trolley, Snatcha, Cookie Monster, and Ominous have 2 remixes, and everyone afterwards only has 1 remix. The number of artists with 1 remix on the label amount to 83. Let's talk about albums. Albums I amalgamated with LPs and EPs. I did not include compilations as that is technically a Disciple compilation and not an artist compilation. I also did not include double-sided singles or individual singles or remixes. So for this, we're going to assume only EPs and LPs. The artist at the #1 spot goes to Dodge and Fusky with a total of 16 albums being released. Following Dodge and Fusky goes to Barely Alive with 13 albums. Virtual Riot coming in afterwards with 11, and Astronaut coming in afterwards with 10. 12th Planet comes in next with 5. Phase 1 and Dubloadz with 4 albums. Oolacile, Truth, Myro, Just Say Yes, and Panda Eyes with 3 albums. Big breath time. Fox Stevenson, Eliminate, Oliver's, The Others, Buca's Finest, Pegboard Nerds, Diamond Eyes, Oski, Chime, Modestep, and Maxim with 2 albums. And with 1 album, Abstract, Vandals, The Firm, Bar 9, Nasco, Turavita, Datsik, The Brig, Culprit, Virus Syndicate, Split Breed, Nick Thayer, Dirty Phonic, Centrin, The Upbeats, Figure, and Obsidia. Moving on, we're going to talk about singles. Now I do feel like I need to clarify with singles a couple things. I did not include individual remixes or remixes. As I said, that would go into the remixes and VIPs. And singles does not mean somebody who only released a single. If an artist released a 4-song EP, then I added 4 songs to the singles. I do want to clarify though that if on this 4-song EP there was a remix, the single was not counted, as then the credit would go to the remixer. I hope that makes sense. The artist with the most singles on Disciple goes to Barely Alive with 65, Virtual Riot following with 56, Dodge and Fusky with 37, Phase 1 with 29, Dubloadz with 26, 12th Planet with 20, Truth with 20, and Oolacile with 19. There's a lot afterwards, I'm not going to bother listing all of them, but what I will include is that there are actually a flat 100 artists that I've released on Disciple, so congrats! And the final statistic. This is the appearances statistic that I made. I counted this as every time an artist appeared on the label. If a remix was released on the label, then an artist would have an appearance. If an artist released a song, that is an appearance. If an artist had a feature, it is an appearance. Basically every time an artist's name was seen. I hope that kind of makes sense. The artist with the most amount of appearances and also the only artist with more than 100 appearances goes to Barely Alive with 102. Following Barely Alive, it goes to Virtual Riot with 82, Dodge and Fusky with 81, and then from here it just drops drastically. Truth with 39, Phase 1 with 38, Dubloadz with 36, Astronaut with 30, 12th Planet with 29, Oolacile with 26, and Eliminate with 19. So I hope that was pretty interesting for everyone. Again, if you guys are curious, you can check out the full statistics later in the description down below. So you guys might think that is the end of the video, and no, there is still actually a little bit more. My buddy Monster has put together a huge document that I will not be sharing, but it has the keys and BPMs to a ton of music, including he actually spent the time to compile the BPMs and keys of every single Disciple song. While I won't be sharing all the statistics related to that, what I will do is, share a couple quick tidbits of averages. The average Disciple song has a BPM of 143, but as many may have expected, the most popular BPM on Disciple is actually 150. The fastest song on Disciple goes to Goja Bad Juju at 180 BPM, and the slowest song goes to Maxim and Mefjus Bad Habits at 94 BPM. And the last fun statistic I'm going to give is simply the order of most popular to least popular keys. F minor comes in first, E minor comes in second, F sharp minor comes in third, D sharp minor comes in fourth, and G minor comes in fifth. Everything else eventually is pretty negligible. From this, we can technically calculate the most average song on Disciple. The most average song on Disciple goes to Phase 1 and Dodge and Fusky with Mistakes featuring Arcturians. This song comes in at F minor, 3 minutes and 47 seconds flat, but at 150 BPM, which is the most common BPM. So there's that. I'm going to end off with just one final statistic, that being the number of songs that were released every single year. In 2013 there were 56 releases, 2014 there were 61, 2015 there were 99, just short of 100, 2016 was the year we went into triple digits with 118, 2017 we had 87 releases, 2018 we had the most releases with 145, and 2019 we are currently at 107 releases. Now mind you, we still have 2 more days left in the year and we don't really know what Disciple may have in store for us. Are we going to beat 2018? I anticipate not, but only time will really tell. But yeah, I guess this is where we're going to end the video. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found this very interesting. In the next Disciple related video, I want to do a video where I share my favorite Disciple songs, and then from there, I'm not really sure where I'm going to go with this. But yeah, I'm hoping this isn't too long. I've already been recording for the past 40 minutes, so hopefully I can cut down a lot where I can. Again, like I said earlier in the video, I want to do this with other labels, so if you guys have other suggestions, you guys can comment in the section down below. I want to do Bitbird next, so I think I might do that, but aside from Bitbird, if there's any other labels, let me know. And yeah, again, hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm going to see you all in the next one. Bye!